You ever felt like it's really hard to talk about yourself? Everyone asks you these important, in depth, soul searching questions that you typically feel like you have the answer for, but you typically don't. When you get put in that spot and that spotlight zone, and you start to contemplate and think like, will I be judged for the information I'm about to say or share about myself, or do I even have the right words to put how I truly feel into context? For me, I grew up in a very loving family, for but in my position, I have a great dad who loves me and raised me since I was 6 months years old. But then I have a father who wasn't really in the picture. And between me and my siblings, which I'm the oldest out of eight, including my step siblings, I always kind of felt isolated and alone. Basically, I felt like the black sheep of my family. I always felt like I had to chase for love or affection, and a lot of times I acted out. I did a lot of dumb things when I was a kid, and through those things, like I was able to help my siblings grow and not, and learn from my mistakes, which is typically how the oldest usually does. You lead by example, and if they either follow the same suit or they do exactly the opposite. And for my sisters who I grew up with in the same house, for them, they learn from my mistakes. But now that I'm older, I had to like literally sit down and think about what those situations actually meant to me and why I did those things I did. And for me, it came from looking for affections in others. I have a very outgoing personality, but I never had a. I always felt like I was chasing something, and that led a lot of my to my future self. And so I joined when I joined the military, I was searching for that brotherhood, that communion of fellowship. So when I joined the military, I was looking for that brotherhood. When I joined the military, I was looking for that communion, that brothership, that fellowship. And even though that was something I always was going to do because I come from a long list of a lineage of service members. My aunt was in the service. My dad was in the service. My uncle was in the service. My grandfather was in the service. My great grandfather was in the service. My great great grandfather was in the service. And even my grandmother served in the government. So I come from a long list of that. They, while from hearing from the stories for them, talking about how they have a friend that they talk to for years and are still in contact with. I was still searching for that. That's where I was still chasing that. Come on, dude. It gets hard. Um, how do you tell someone and express your faults and your failures? For me, one of the things that I've had issues with and struggled to understand about myself is being loved and being liked and feeling judged for the things that I do and the things that I say. When I was younger, I felt like, oh, I know I was chasing my family's affection. And it wasn't that they didn't love me, it wasn't that I didn't know how they provided. It's just I was a kid and that's how I felt. And I felt that with my two sisters always spending time more time than I did with my parents, I felt like I was a black sheep. And feeling like a black sheep, especially at that young age, and not knowing what was truly going on, developed my actions and I used to act out. And from knowing the right from wrongs and bad decisions get bad outcome, um, searching for that affection or that love morphed into something different. And so I joined the military, which I always was going to do because I come from a long list of it. I was searching for a semblance of affection. I wanted to find people who would like me, who want to be around me for a long period of time, no matter what the thick and thin. And that's usually the type of relationship you find from the military. And so while from learning that and while I was in the military, I found amazing friends and brothers that I can call upon to this day and seek advice and seek guidance. But once left the military, I learned that that affection and I learned this about myself. Being a civilian in this world, this day and age, and I use that term loosely because I was in the military, but being a human being in this day and age, in this era, in this environment where laws are being changed, rules are being adjusted, the economy is going uphill, but at the same time downhill, and all the advantages that used to be presentable back then are not the same thing now. And knowing myself of how I used to chase that affection and that companionship is it's completely different back then. Nowadays, technology has a major hand in how we communicate. Cell phones, emails, and and AI. But back then, how people used to get in contact with each other and stay connected was writing letters, going to bars, going to dinner. You constantly saw each other and you built that one-on-one connection. And it was a lot easier to do it back then. But now you've lost that semblance. And so